So today we're going to be looking at this piece of software, Macrium Reflect. I'm going to be using it to clone one disk that contains a Linux OS onto another disk. So I'm going to be cloning from an SSD to a SATA disk. Now this is really useful software, and it's completely free as well. So what I'm doing here is I'm just downloading the software, and then I'm going to run through the installation of it. It's very simple to use, so we'll let that install, and I'll explain a bit more what I want to do a bit later. So this is downloading the installer. As you can see previously, I've selected the free version. So you can't do some stuff, but it's perfect for cloning. So this is now actually running through the installation. Click on next, read the license agreement, as I've just done there, as you can see. Home user. Okay, so here you want to add your email address and the registration code. That you have to do it. If you haven't done that already, then you can just use the get my code after entering your email address. And then this will allow us to have the software registered, even though it's completely free. So you want to make sure that you just have the desktop shortcut, unless of course you want another option, and then that will install. So that's complete. So now I will show you what I've got set up and what I'm going to be cloning from. Okay, so we've got both of the disks connected. So the first SSD drive, I'm using a StarTech cable, and the second IDE, or not the IDE, but the second SATA drive, which is the spinning disk, that is connected again via a SATA USB interface. They're both connected to the PC. And then what we want to do is we're going to open up Disk Manager so we can make sure that we can see both of the disks in Windows, and then we're going to use the software and clone from the SSD drive here onto the SATA drive. So they're both 250 gig disks. So you can see on this one that actually what I've got is a crucial chip with an adapter case, which I'm going to use to put in the laptop. We're going to clone the version of Linux that I've got on that one onto this one, and then I can put that back in my Linux server. And then what I'm going to do is I've got a Windows build actually in the laptop that I'm then going to clone onto that SATA drive. So it's a two-step process, but I can't afford to lose my Linux installation. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the Disk Manager. So you want to launch your Disk Manager, just type in disk there, and then you want to use this option, create and format hard disk partitions. What this is going to do, it's going to go off and check all of the disks on the device, and this is my C drive, this is my D drive, and then I've got the two disks that I've added here. So this is the SSD, and this is the SATA disk. So I can see that they're both there and active. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to have a look at this one. Okay, that's fine. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to go to our cloning software. So we're going to launch it for the first time. This is the first time I'm using this. Okay, that's great. So it's got all of our disks. So what we want to do is we're actually going to be cloning. Okay, so we can see our disks. So the two that we're interested in are disk 7 and disk 8. So the SATA drive and the SSD. So what I'm going to do is I want to select this drive and I want to clone this disk. I want to use this option here. So I'll highlight the disk, tick the box so it ticks both of the partitions. I'm going to clone that disk and we're going to clone it onto disk 8. So I've got no partitions on there. I've deleted all of the partitions and volumes already. So all we need to do there is make sure that it's got both of the partitions selected at the top, and then we'll run through the... No, we don't need to schedule it, so we just click through that. Okay, so disk 7, 240 gig. You've got your two partitions here, copy 1 and copy 2. That's absolutely fine. That's going to put it onto the SATA drive. So make sure that that is all correct. Source is disk 7, destination is disk 8. There's the two partitions. So click on finish. We want to run the backup. We don't want to save the backup. Don't need to do that. So we're just going to run it now, and that will go off and clone the disk. So depending on how much data you've got on your device, it may take a little while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that running and I'll come back and we'll continue once that's completed. Okay, so that took a couple of hours to complete, and that is it. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that disk into my Linux machine and just make sure that that all boots up okay. So you can see here we've got around about 10 gig of free space, but that's absolutely fine. So that's the hard disk inserted, that's all booted up fine, we'll check that over in a sec. And that's come back on without any adjustment needing at all, so really good disk clone.